I'll take everything in the inheritance. My eldest son. Jack was urgently transported to the hospital after an accident and sadly lost his life. Carla, Jack's wife, despite knowing he was taken to the hospital, never showed up. However, as soon as she learned of Jack's death, she suddenly appeared before us and uttered these words. Hearing Carla's words, I couldn't help but smirk internally. Then, I offered Carla some words of consolation. My condolences. Carla's mother laughed mockingly, but she would be shocked if she knew the truth. The laughter is only temporary. My name is Teresa Reed. I am 65 years old this year, retired, and living on a pension. My husband, Dan, founded a successful company. I supported Dan from behind the scenes, but lately, he has been ill and not very energetic. I might not have much longer to live. Dan spoke ominously. I can't imagine life without Dan, but I fear the day we must say goodbye may eventually come. Dan has a very kind nature and always listens to me with a smile. Being with the gentle Dan, I think I've become calm. That's how important Dan is to me. After marrying Dan, we were blessed with a son. We considered having more children, but after the birth of our son, Jack, we were not blessed with more. We poured all our love into Jack. Perhaps we spoiled him a bit in his upbringing, but Jack grew up healthy and strong. After graduating from college and getting a job, Jack got married. He moved out of our home, but at Dan's suggestion, he built a house close to ours. We thought it would be good to live nearby to support each other in times of need. However, there was one source of concern. That was the presence of Jack's wife, Carla. Carla, Jack's wife, had a peculiar personality. It seemed Dan hadn't noticed Carla's bad traits. When we first met Carla, we were shocked by her audacity. Didn't she think to be polite when meeting her spouse's parents? It was strange, but I tried not to mind, thinking it was just her character. But Carla complained about the layout and interior design of the house Dan was building for Jack. Meeting Carla's demands would require a significant additional cost. She asked us to cover that cost as a wedding gift. In other words, Carla was an audacious and unreasonable woman. I remember even Dan was lost for words. Eventually, we went ahead with the interior renovations to make the house as Carla wanted. Of course, Dan paid for it, and Carla seemed satisfied. Unexpected interior work delayed Jack and Carla's move. We thought they could stay at our home until the work was finished. But Carla preferred to live in a hotel. Staying in a hotel every day would cost a lot of money. Still, Carla ignored our advice and started living in a hotel. They stayed in a hotel for about 2 weeks at Carla's request, but eventually, the cost was billed to us. I thought it would be for Jack's benefit, but there were parts one couldn't agree with. I'm okay with staying at my parents' house, but Carla doesn't like it. I want her to stop because staying at a hotel costs a lot of money. Jack seemed to have opposed the hotel stay. Nevertheless, Carla overruled Jack's objection. I was anxious about whether their relationship could last. Carla used to be an office worker but quit her job to become a housewife after marrying Jack. When we told Carla the renovations were complete, she made a clearly displeased face. She should be happy about their own home. I wondered why she seemed unhappy, and then Carla said something surprising. I wish I could live in a hotel forever. No need to clean or prepare meals. I hate the idea of having to do it all myself now. Carla muttered her true feelings, thinking I was not listening. Life in a hotel must have been very comfortable. However, she should at least feel grateful for the house Dan built for them with kindness. But for Carla, giving up the easy life was something she just couldn't bear. I think hotels are convenient. But living in a new house allows you to freely enjoy without any reservations. I casually spoke to Carla, but she sighed in response. Witnessing Carla's attitude, I couldn't help feeling anxious about whether we could get along with her in the future. Regardless of our relationship, I was also worried about whether she could get along with Jack. However, since Jack's and our home are close by, I thought it would be fine as we could always come over if needed. So I didn't think too deeply about it. Finally, it was time for Jack and his wife to move into their new home. And we helped with the moving process. But Carla didn't lift a finger, complaining that it would ruin her nails. And just sat watching us work the entire time. Hurry up, please. My favorite drama starts in an hour, so I want it done by then. While playing games on her smartphone, Carla criticized our work. Dan is usually calm, but I noticed he was a bit annoyed. Jack, under Carla's thumb, worked without complaint and focused on the task. I wanted to complain about Carla's terrible attitude, but I decided to endure it since we wouldn't have much to do with them once the move was over. After that, we had little interaction with Jack and his wife, even though we lived nearby. We didn't feel the need to visit Jack and his wife's house, and they didn't come to ours. I thought we would visit each other's homes occasionally since we lived close by. However, there was no family interaction at all after they moved. It was sad that there was no interaction despite Dan's wish for Jack to live nearby. I thought Dan felt lonelier than I did, so I told Jack, "You should come by the house sometime." I'd like to, but Carla isn't keen on visiting. I'm hesitant to force her. Jack shared Carla's feelings reluctantly. It's unfortunate if she's unwilling, but I hoped they would at least show up for Christmas holidays. As the end of the year approached, I was preparing for the Christmas feast. I called Jack, thinking of preparing food for them if they were coming over. But he didn't answer, possibly being at work. Reluctantly, I called Carla, but her response was appalling. "Yes? What do you want? It's been a while. How are you?" With Christmas coming up, I thought it might be nice to have a meal together at our place. If you're free, how about it? I'll prepare food for you too. Despite being irritated by Carla's first words, I tried to speak calmly. However, Carla's responses were nothing but rude. "Why should we spend Christmas with old people? Don't say such unlucky things. We're busy with plans to go to the party. There's no way we'd go to your house." Carla laughed at us, treating us like old people. I regretted contacting her after being spoken to so horribly. Sorry for not being considerate. You're young, so of course, you have plans. Forget what I said, please. Well, if it's just showing up, that might be okay. Are you going to give us a Christmas gift? If I'm getting money, I might consider coming over. Christmas money? What is she talking about? Is she saying she'd only visit if she gets money? I already had a bad impression of Carla. But this incident confirmed she was indeed unreasonable. It's not that I didn't want to give Christmas money. But knowing it was all about the money made me not want them to come over. I decided to spend a quiet Christmas Eve with Dan alone, without inviting Jack and his wife. On Christmas Eve, I was busy preparing the holiday meals. Suddenly, Dan had a seizure and collapsed. The Christmas celebration was the furthest thing from my mind. As I accompanied him to the hospital in an ambulance, Dan did not wake up for quite some time. Days passed, and Dan never recovered, ultimately passing away. The event was so sudden that everything turned dark before my eyes. Worrying about Carla was the least of my concerns then. I never imagined losing Dan at this time, and I was deeply saddened by his loss. I contacted Jack to inform him about Dan. Jack came to the hospital immediately and broke down crying upon seeing Dan. He couldn't accept that he wasn't there for Dan's last moments. I had called Jack once when Dan was taken to the hospital. But Carla had said they couldn't come because she wanted to go to the Christmas party. It seemed Jack went reluctantly with Carla to the party, not at ease. However, it appeared Jack hadn't expected Dan to pass away. And he was even more devastated than I was. I regretted not insisting Jack come to the hospital by any means necessary. Since Dan's assets were supposed to be inherited by Jack, I got caught up in various procedures, leaving me no time to grieve. After a while, all procedures related to Dan were completed, and I felt relieved. Jack took over Dan's company. Jack must have had a good sense for business, as the company grew rapidly. And within 3 years, its assets reached $10 million. However, Jack died in a head-on collision with an oncoming car while returning from work. The cause was the other driver's drowsiness. I couldn't accept the reality. I cried more than I thought possible, realizing how much humans can weep. I was saddened by Dan's departure, but I had anticipated that it might happen someday. However, I never expected Jack to pass away before me. When I learned Jack was taken to the hospital, I rushed there immediately. But Carla was nowhere to be seen. Even when I called Carla, I only got her voicemail, and I couldn't reach her until Jack was gone. I was surprised that Carla didn't come to the hospital, even though I thought she cared about Jack despite how she treated me and Dan. Jack's situation must have been conveyed to Carla. A few days later, while preparing for Jack's funeral, Carla and her mother suddenly visited. "Where have you been? As his wife, you should have been by Jack's side." I was at a loss for words, not knowing what to say. However, Carla had a mischievous smile on her face. "I'll take everything in the inheritance." That was the first thing Carla said upon seeing me. Didn't she feel sad that Jack was gone? Instead of mourning, she was talking about the inheritance even before the funeral was over. But that was expected. "My condolences." Carla's mother said it with a grin. "The laughter is only temporary." "Huh? What are you talking about? Maybe you've gone crazy since your son died." I ignored Carla's words and decided to proceed with the funeral preparations. Whatever Carla said didn't matter to me anymore. Carla was no longer family to me. Jack's funeral concluded without any issues. Though I was saddened, I couldn't afford to be depressed forever. It was the beginning of my revenge against Carla, who had treated me poorly. Once, Jack had consulted me about Carla possibly having an affair. I hired a detective for Jack's sake and asked them to investigate Carla. The investigation revealed Carla's infidelity. Although Carla was a housewife, she was always meeting other men while Jack was at work, not just one man but several. Carla was deeply involved with multiple men. Until Carla's infidelity was discovered, she would have inherited Jack's assets if anything happened to him. However, once Jack learned about the affair, he changed the beneficiary to me. Carla still thinks she is the beneficiary. That's why she declared she would inherit the estate. Jack had been considering divorce, but he thought that divorcing would mean losing half of the inheritance. Therefore, he decided not to divorce for the time being, leaving his money in his account while he observed the situation. This was just before the incident happened. I wonder how Jack felt, which left me feeling helpless. At the same time, I thought I wouldn't let Carla get away with this. The day after the funeral, Carla bombarded me with an excessive number of calls. Probably realizing she couldn't inherit the estate. I could guess what Carla was thinking. So I continued to ignore her relentless calls regardless of how many there were. There was nothing I wanted to discuss with Carla. Even days later, the calls from Carla didn't stop. I could understand her frustration, considering Jack's assets were worth $10 million. If Carla had truly cared for Jack as a wife, this situation wouldn't have arisen. However, Carla's selfish actions and neglect of her family had finally caught up with her. I successfully inherited Jack's estate and completed all the procedures. At that point, I decided to try contacting Carla. That said, since she kept calling incessantly, I planned to answer the next time she called. A few minutes later, as expected, Carla called, so I decided to pick up. "You finally answered the phone. Why are you ignoring me? Do you know how many times I've called? What do you want by calling? You never answer the phone when I call you, anyway. I don't think you have any right to complain." I couldn't help but make a sarcastic remark, but honestly, it was the truth. Carla only contacts me when she needs something. When I have something urgent, she rarely picks up. What do you mean I can't receive the inheritance? Did you scheme something? Just because you dislike me, you can't just take away my inheritance. That's why I hated you. I'm the beneficiary. So you should make it possible for me to receive it. If you don't, I'll sue you. This was all decided by Jack. I'm just respecting his wishes. If you want to sue, go ahead. I haven't schemed anything, so even if she sues, there won't be any problem. I thought she could do whatever she likes. Jack, just in case, had entrusted me with all his bank books and related documents to prevent Carla from doing as she pleased. For a while, there was no contact from Carla, nor did she visit our house. I thought she had given up when suddenly I saw an incoming call from Carla on my smartphone and accidentally answered. "It's your fault I'm drowned in debt now. You should take responsibility. Since you received $10 million, I think you could help me out a bit." Carla screamed at me right away, but I could guess why without needing to hear the reason. According to the investigation by a detective, Carla had been involved with a married man. Jack had contacted the woman involved, sending her proof of the affair. The woman, while prepared to resent him, seemed grateful to Jack and said she would divorce her husband, who was Carla's affair partner. Moreover, she planned to demand compensation for the money scammed by both Carla and her lover. Carla's debt was likely due to this compensation. I was just having fun, not cheating, yet I was sued for compensation by 3 people. You must have told the wife, didn't you? She said someone told her, but you're the only one I can think of. No one else would do such an outrageous thing. I was puzzled by what the 3 people meant. I only knew about one affair. From Carla's words, it seemed she wasn't involved with just one married man. Being sued for compensation by 3 people would indeed be a difficult situation. However, I had no obligation to help her. Now she comes seeking help. What was she thinking? I don't know about that. You were involved in something that got you sued for compensation? I didn't say that, but well, they must have misunderstood my just having fun for something else. It's not like I would cheat. I think it's because of you that it got exposed. Admitting to being exposed meant admitting to the affairs. I decided to tell her the truth. Exposed means your affair was exposed, right? Jack was the one who noticed your affairs. I understand you might want to blame me, but it's your fault for having an affair, isn't it? Do you understand why Jack didn't leave the inheritance to you? That's not true. I wasn't cheating. I was just playing around to kill time. To think I lost $10 million because of that, it's unbelievable. Did you rejoice thinking I got what I deserved for losing $10 million? Why didn't you defend me? Why would I have any reason to defend Carla? She hurt my son. There's no way I could support someone like that. I wondered how she could be so carefree. Why should I have to defend you? You treated us poorly and betrayed Jack. There's no need for me to help someone like that. I'm your daughter-in-law, aren't I? Shouldn't you have tried to make our relationship work? Can you still call yourself a mother-in-law? Carla's actions and words up to this point never made me feel she recognized me as a mother-in-law. Only when it was convenient for her, she'd call me a mother-in-law. I felt I could no longer tolerate Carla's absurdity. We're no longer family, so please stop relying on me. There's nothing good in being involved with you anymore. I don't have a single penny to give you. Please stop contacting me. While I wondered if I was too harsh, I ended the call. It wasn't my intention to be malicious toward Carla. Initially, I wanted to cherish her like my own daughter since she married Jack. However, it was Carla who didn't allow that to happen. It's unreasonable for her to complain to me. Despite Carla's continuous calls afterward, I ignored them all, thinking there was no point in talking further. A few days later, while doing the dishes, the doorbell rang unexpectedly. With no delivery scheduled, I was suspicious of who it could be, fearing it might be Carla. Reluctantly approaching the door, I heard a voice resembling Carla's and decided to quietly return to my room. I know you're there. Pretending not to be home is useless. Give me back my money. That money is mine, you thief. How dare you take my daughter's money? Come out right now. Hearing this, I quietly went back inside. Carla and her mother had come. Shortly after, I called the police. Since Carla and I were strangers now, her coming to my house was nothing but a nuisance. I waited inside until the police arrived, not venturing out. But then heard a loud noise from the entrance. Something sounded like it was being broken. Perhaps they destroyed Dan's beloved bonsai? Hoping for the police's quick arrival, I waited anxiously. About 10 minutes later, the police seemed to have arrived. And after a brief conversation through the intercom, they asked me to come outside. When I did, Carla was being restrained by the police. I invited the officers in and shared everything about my encounters with Carla, feeling empty as I spoke. If only I had persuaded Jack to notice Carla's true nature sooner. He might not have suffered from her infidelity and died in misery. Though I understand it's too late for regrets, my emotions lag behind this realization. The officer kindly said, "Take your time," as I struggled to find the words. After catching my breath, I finished telling the story. The officer, having listened to everything, advised me to call immediately if anything else happened and prepared to leave. As I escorted him to the door, I noticed Dan's bonsai and other items were indeed damaged. After informing the police about the vandalism, they said they'd investigate. Fortunately, I had installed security cameras at the entrance, which I provided to the police. I never thought the cameras would prove useful in such a scenario, marking the first time I truly appreciated having them. While I didn't mind being targeted, the idea of them destroying Dan's cherished bonsai was unthinkable. To me, it was more than just a plant, it was a precious memory. My anger towards Carla only intensified. During my conversation with the police, Carla and her mother were apparently taken away. They ruined my life because of that woman. She needs to take responsibility. It's the lowest to destroy my daughter's life. They screamed. The newly arrived police officers, sensing the situation was serious despite not knowing the details, decided to take Carla and her mother into custody. They were particularly concerned about the damaged bonsai at the entrance, deeming it unsafe to leave them outside my house, and informed me of their decision. Following that, Carla and her mother were interrogated by the police. Despite her denial, security camera footage proved decisive, leading to Carla being charged with property damage, and thus, she wouldn't be able to go outside for a while. Carla's mother, merely present at the scene, wasn't charged. Carla had not only failed to cherish her family but also disrupted other families, and even destroyed property in my garden. I felt relieved when I heard she would be held accountable for her actions, thinking such a person shouldn't be let off easily. The police explained that Carla became swamped in debt due to demands for compensation from 3 married men she had affairs with, leading to her mental instability. However, I couldn't help but question. If someone truly mentally unstable could articulate their situation so clearly. As I silently listened to the officer, it was clear Carla's assertions fell flat. And she was ultimately charged. It seemed unlikely that I would encounter Carla for some time. And I preferred it that way, wishing to have no future dealings with her. Furthermore, Carla's mother had apparently been counting on Jack's inheritance, going so far as to finalize the purchase of a new car and a house. Discovering the inheritance was out of reach, she now faced the burden of repaying loans with her earnings. Being divorced and without anyone to turn to, she's working desperately to settle her debts. Over the past few years, I've lost many dear to me. Despite the sadness, dwelling on sorrow wasn't an option. Moving forward was the only path. Initially, Dan's company was to be Jack's legacy, but his untimely accident left no successors. That's when I thought of the executive Dan had trusted. An employee who joined when Dan first started the company, slightly older than Jack. If Jack doesn't take over, I'd trust him to handle it, Dan had even mentioned. Honoring Dan's wishes, I decided to pass on the company to the executive. Surprised, yet understanding the company couldn't continue without someone at the helm. He agreed to take over, expressing a desire to work hard for Dan's sake. This assurance allowed me to transfer ownership with peace of mind. Now, living off Jack's inheritance, I'm not in want of money. Not that I'm indulging in luxury, I intend to use Jack's money wisely. Admittedly, the thought of spending such a significant amount is daunting, requiring careful consideration for the future. For now, my plan is to take things slowly.